when you do a podcast, people who listen to this episode, it might be today and it might be months from now. It could be years from now.
True.
The actual fact is it's early January, and this is the first new episode of the year on this show. And so you're my victim. You came recommended. So hello, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And I got sober October of 1992, so I'm no longer a newcomer.
Yeah.
But what are your numbers? When did you get sober?
It depends on what you consider a newcomer, because I'm actually not a newcomer. I have about 4 years of sobriety.
Oh, you know what? Why? I think I'm young people's.
Young people's, yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, gotcha. You're not a newcomer at all.
Yeah.
You're middle-aged. So, well, you know what? I'm still going to back up and say how to get started for you. When was enough? What'd you do?
Yeah, it was 2019, summer of 2019. Basically, I moved back to Santa Fe because a marriage that I was in was ending. And so I moved back to Santa Fe. And the Friendship Club was just a block and a half away. So that was, so my sobriety date is July 4th, 2019.
You grew up here? You said you moved back here.
Right, yeah. I grew up in Santa Fe, yeah. Uh-huh.
And where'd you get off to that you had to move back from?
Well, I lived in Albuquerque for about 10 years. And then I was in South Korea for a minute, and then I was in San Antonio.
No, you weren't. What were you doing in South Korea?
So the person I was married to was... had enlisted in the Army, and that's where we were stationed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And when was that, and for how long?
That was the end of 2018, and yeah, it's a complicated story, but basically we were there for 3 months. That was supposed to be 2 years, and then we were moved to Fort Sam Houston, which is in San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, can go into it if you want.
No, it's kind of I sometimes find that interesting and helpful.
Yeah.
And when did you start drinking alcoholically? What age?
Alcoholically, I think I was probably 16.
Yeah,
most likely.
Yep.
Yeah,
in Texas,
Santa Fe. Yeah, I grew up here. I moved to Albuquerque when I was.
I haven't gotten one thing right in this whole interview, but I told you the vibe we're going for is like a dinner party. So it's typical. 16. What did it feel like? What did it happen that made you feel different? Because alcoholics are different. We just are.
Yeah, no, true. I mean, when I had my first drink, it was a situation. I think my first drink was when I was 15. I just wanted to know what it was like to drink alcohol.
Sure.
Actually, neither of my parents were drinkers.
Okay.
Because they were very religious. But when you look at the traits of an alcoholic, I do think that they're in a way alcoholics.
Interesting.
In a way.
What sometimes gets called alcoholic thinking? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Tell me what you mean by that. I think that's interesting. Well, let me help. I was at a recovery meeting. I had like a week, and I didn't know anything about anything. And the speaker took questions and used that. She said, "I think when I was a little kid." Mm-hmm. That I was an alcoholic who hadn't had her first drink yet. And I didn't know what. That made my head swim because I just thought you drink until you're addicted to alcohol and then you're an alcoholic. And so that phrase was a new one on me. Yeah. And I asked her what she meant. She said, oh, well, when I felt happy and joyous, nobody in the history of planet Earth had ever been, as fired up as I was at that moment when I had the blues.
True.
Nobody in the history of the world had ever been as bummed out and sad as I was. Just extremes. And I went, okay, I get that. So that's one example. Does that click with what you're talking about, or?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, my dad, I didn't know this until I was much older, but he went to he went to jail for selling drugs when he was young, and when I asked him about it later, I'd kind of heard like rumors of it, but he never really talked about it. But he was saying that he was like using a lot of drugs, and he went to jail, but actually got out early to go into actually Delancey Street. Like if you're familiar with Delancey Street.
Now that's I know the name from a Jewish neighborhood in Manhattan, but it's in Albuquerque or Espanola or something.
Yeah,
right?
I think there is a recovery. I think it was in New York. I'm not sure the history of that.
I think so too, yeah.
But I believe it's out by Espanola. There's like basically it's like a recovery center with like a trade schools or something associated with it where you can learn a skill while you're there.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So basically he that's how he ended up in Santa Fe was, basically he went to Delancey Street, moved to Santa Fe. I learned that later. So basically like there is addiction, in my family, but it just wasn't something I was aware of until I was older.
Wow. Yeah. I don't think alcoholics and addicts are normal, and I'm one.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would say going to jail for dealing drugs is not normal. It's not something everybody experiences in their life. And you would go even further. You feel like it was sort of in the family lore that he was messed up on drugs for a while.
Yeah, no, that was definitely part of it. Basically, what I meant by like no one was actively drinking or something like that was I do believe the addiction was there, but there was no recovery going on. As I was being raised,
Right.
So that's kind of what I mean by like the alcoholic thinking or just sort of the.
Yeah, I don't know how much this has come up on the show. We're in about 60 episodes now. Is mysterious to people who don't share our disease. Okay, Sherm, you haven't had drinks or a drug in decades.
Yeah. Why
are you going to those meetings?
Right.
And the answer I could give that you'll understand is come for the drinking, stay for the thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
It's another way to talk about addicts being different is the zebra illustration. We kind of look like horses. And we can hang out with horses and we can pass for horses. We ain't horses. We're a little different.
Yeah.
There is something that was discovered by Bill and Bob back in the 1930s that when our tribe gets together, it's helpful. When alcoholics who are no longer drinking and are trying to keep it that way get together in a room and talk about what's really going on, and especially if it's kind of in the... Like if we color between the lines and stay with, well, here's how it seems the compulsion to stay loaded goes away is by working an inventory and being honest about it and taking a look at our character defects and analyzing those and working on them with the help of maybe a sponsor, maybe a home group. In this day and age, a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
So you definitely got sober in the Zoom era. Has that been a part of your story? I don't know. We've only met this morning. I don't know.
Yeah, it was right before all that. So I think I came in about 9 months before the pandemic happened.
Yeah, March of 20 was when the shit hit the fan.
Yeah, so I came in July 2019. So basically I started working the program, got a sponsor, started going into a lot of meetings. I was chairing meetings and things like that. And,
wow. Okay. No wonder you're sober. That's getting into it and getting it done.
Yeah. Luckily, actually, you've had my sponsor on your show.
Give me a first name.
Barry.
Oh, I love Barry. Yeah. Okay, way to go.
Yeah, Barry's the best.
We were to have had dinner last night, but we got snowed out. So yeah, I talked to Barry a lot. Great man.
Yeah,
okay.
He's great. So basically, I just followed everything that he said when I came in, but which got me very involved very quickly. And,
that's awesome.
Just a ton of support from him, and just so lost coming into it, and. A lot of guidance from him, like really shot me towards like a sober mindset pretty quickly. So
yeah, well, do you have more you'd like to share about sponsorship and having a strong sponsor? Because I'm all about that. I talk to my sponsor a lot for considering how long I've been around. I stay in pretty good touch with him. Monthly for sure, weekly sometimes more.
Yeah, I try to meet with him weekly. And I truly could not have done any of it without a sponsor whatsoever. I wouldn't have understood anything. I don't think I would have really grasped the spiritual aspect of the program to the way that I do now. And I really don't think I would have been involved whatsoever, which would have kept me on the little bit of the outside rather than the inner circle of things, and probably fallen off.
Well, I can heartily recommend if somebody's listening to this and they didn't hear Barry's episodes, plural. He was the first guy we had on 2 episodes because his story was such a doozy and he's such a cool dude. I just love the guy. And now that I know who your sponsor is, and I know your sponsor very well.
Yeah.
You know, he's no square. He tells it like it really is. He lives in the real world.
Yeah.
And he's faced some huge challenges and still is an assassin of recovery. I just love this guy comes charging at the program, but in a very no BS kind of way. And so that's the kind of sponsorship I've had. I've moved cities a few times. I got sober in Los Angeles in 92. I moved back to my hometown of Dallas and was there for some years. Back to LA and out here to New Mexico. So I've had 4 sponsors in 31 years. So I wouldn't say I've gone through a bunch of them. 31 years is a long goddamn time, but I have had 4 sponsors, and all of them were no BS kind of guys. They cussed like me. They had a sense of humor about the same stuff I've got a sense of humor about. And I've always said that for me, if this had been Sunday school, I couldn't have stayed with it.
Yeah, exactly.
But it turns out recovery is really and truly about who you are at 2 a.m, who you are when nobody's looking, who you are as you're going through the dating nightmare, you know, who you are when you're working in a bar and you're staying sober. You know, there's a lot to this.
Yeah.
My first sponsor, I'm just a soft kid from the suburbs. I'm not a kid of privilege, but I grew up in a pretty soft, safe, leave it the beaver kind of environment. I just got addicted to drugs and alcohol. I didn't grow up, whatever. That's what I bring to the story. And my first sponsor had been a fucking desperado. He had bullet holes and knife holes and stuff in him. He grew up in Newark or something like that, and kind of thuggish life, very different to my upbringing. The very first time we sat down as sponsor and sponsee, and it was like you, I got right into it, like weeks. I had maybe 3 weeks sober when I asked him to sponsor me.
Yeah.
He sat down, he looked me right in the eye, and he said, "This disease kills motherfuckers every day." And he said, "It's not just overdoses and car wrecks." And he said, "But you could choke to death on a chicken bone laughing at some stupid shit that's not even funny, but you're drunk and so you're out of your head." And he said, "There's a million ways to die from this deal."
Yeah.
And I've never forgotten that. And boy, does it turn out to be true. And now that I'm in my 60s and my wife is a nurse, you know, I get to see what decades of drinking really actually does to your liver. And that's the big one. And so on, you know, and that's where it gets started is, you know, it's a problem, the drinking and drugging. You know, it's bad things happen to you when you're high.
Yeah.
And you can't stop. What the hell's up with that? That's not normal. And that's why we're zebras and not horses. I've got someone in my family who was told by a doctor to drink a glass of wine with dinner. It had some, I can't remember what it was for. It was like blood pressure or some goddamn thing. I don't know. And after about a week of this, he said to me, "Man, I got to talk to my doctor. This regimen is, I'm not into it. I don't want to do it." I said, "What's the matter?" And he goes, "I'm feeling it." I'm like, "Oh, you drank a glass of wine and you can feel it. And so you know that that's a problem." This is not my reaction to drinking wine when I was young.
Yeah.
You know, more. Make my feelings stop.
Yeah.
Were you like really powerfully physically addicted to stuff when you came in, or did you just see trouble coming and thought you better get ahead of it?
Yeah, I saw trouble coming, basically. I mean,
I'll ask how old you are.
I'm 32.
Gotcha.
So I'm almost...
You were in your 20s when you got sober. That's young.
Yeah. I'm almost not a young person anymore, according to the criteria, but, you know. Yeah,
I got you. I got sober at 32. I get it. Yeah. Seems a lot younger now than it did when I was 32, but go ahead.
Yeah. I was 28 when I got started.
Great.
Yeah. But yeah, the trouble really was for me, you know, the story really contains a lot of drugs and alcohol for me.
That's cool.
And
me too.
Yeah, I think that's true with a lot of people. You know, I think the first kind of warning signs for me actually didn't even relate to was experiencing myself, but it was, you know, my really good friend at the time who was getting really addicted to heroin. And I saw his decline sort of from like taking like oxycodone and things like that. And
gotcha.
And I saw that happening, and I was kind of along the ride with him, but it was easier for me to see the addiction in him than it was in me. And I think that's when I first started thinking about it, like, oh, this is kind of like, this is not going to go in like a positive direction. Like, this isn't going to get easier. It's
very wise. Harder. Very wise for someone in their 20s, man. Well done, you. So how'd you know about 12 steps and stuff, or did you? Actually,
it was somebody, it was sort of a coincidence. Like somebody I was dating in the past had mentioned that they had been to AA meetings, because basically I went on a first date with a black eye because I had blacked out the night, like not the night before, but like the weekend before.
I'm sorry, a black eye.
A black eye, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, I had a black eye from falling on my face from blacking out. Yeah, that was actually my last night of drinking. I was actually dry for a very long time before I came into the program.
Me too, and I don't talk about that because it can give the wrong idea.
Yeah.
Because I just moved to drugs. Yeah. Or I stayed on drugs, whatever you want to say. I stayed high, even though I stopped liquor a long time before I got sober.
Yeah.
That just happens to be the truth. But what I learned from that is I've just got addiction.
Yeah.
If at that time in my life, my 20s, something was available to me that would take away that sober feeling, I would buy it and ingest it. And me too. You were dry for a while, including other drugs besides alcohol, or you went on marijuana maintenance? I'll just say it. That's what we call it in recovery.
Yeah, I actually, I don't know. I went through a lot of periods of I would stop drinking, but then I would smoke a lot of weed, and then, or I would stop doing this and I would do that. And, and that was kind of the way.
Right at the same age, bro. Exactly. Yeah.
And that's kind of what was going on. I actually quit drinking, smoking weed, anything actually before I came to the program.
For how long?
I know it's probably like a year and a half.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know it's kind of something that doesn't get talked about a lot. In certain cases, you can actually be dry, but it doesn't mean that you're doing very well mentally.
Yeah. Look, it's friggin' complicated, and especially when you're that young.
Yeah.
And by that I mean that's not intended as a patronizing. It's not.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, drinking for decades is different from getting into your mid-20s and going, whoa, trouble's coming. I got to have a look at this. It's just different. It's a different story. And I think it's fantastic that people get sober younger than they used to back in the early days of AA. There's no guarantee that if you drink through your 30s and 40s, you're going to make it, or that you won't chew your insides up to pieces, or that you won't end up killing somebody in a traffic accident. The earlier is better.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a few people that drank themselves to death like in their 20s.
That's right.
Which is just awful.
And I also know examples, including a really recent one, where somebody has some time sober, falls off the wagon, as somebody who's not in recovery would say, for a minute, and on the day gets a DWI and fucks up their money for the rest of it, and then comes back, gets a newcomer chip, and gets back in line. Like, you know what? You really could have just not had that one Wednesday where you cost yourself, you need an interlock on your car, and your wife's not talking to you, and you got a black mark on your record, and employers don't take, they take a goddamn dim view of a DWI in this day and age. And so it's the stakes are so high for alcoholics and addicts to go back and go, whatever. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
Fuck around and find out, as the young kids say.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I know you'd hope that would be, that's your bottom, like this is, I guess you need to go out and try again and find a new bottom to remind you to stay sober. I don't know.
It's in the very short time that I've gotten to know you, one of the big things I know about you is you've worked with Barry as a sponsee for a few years.
Yeah.
So any more you want to talk about the specifics of that? Like, got inside your heart and said, this guy really does get me and this is helping?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing where I really got a lot of confidence about the program was there was a lot of things that I really wanted to get off my chest, and I think I was really hoping that I could say some things about my, drug addiction, like drinking and that kind of thing to him. And so I kind of just blurted a whole bunch of stuff out that really was stuff I'd never wanted to talk about.
During your, what we call a fifth step, or just in terms of talking to him?
We actually just, we met in the context of like, I really need help and I don't know where to get started, but I got this phone list, and he just, he asked me like, well, do you want to just like go get coffee? And
right. Sure.
I was like, yes, please. Like, I really need someone to talk to and that kind of thing. And I think I told him that before he was even my sponsor, just kind of like, these are all the things I'm dealing with. And like, I'm in so much pain and that kind of thing. And it was just such relief that he had no reaction to all these things that I thought were just some of the worst things about me, and things that I felt so guilty about, and things were just weighing on me for years that it was such a relief that
Isaac, my sponsor, fell asleep. I read him my list and he fell asleep.
Yeah.
And like you, these were the terrifying take to the gravers that I was never going to share, and it really landed with me of, people in AA are not impressed by these exploits. It's all the same stuff. I've never heard anybody confess to murder, but shy of that, you spent money on this when you should have spent it on paying your bills? Really? Oh, you slept with somebody you shouldn't have? Ooh, shockerino there. Yeah. It's the stuff we do when we're drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Or high.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that identifying with somebody who's walked down the path, and we can tell that somebody's sober now.
Yeah.
We come into recovery, we go out to have coffee and have a real hardcore conversation like you just alluded to. That identification is huge. That it's like, he's not impressed because he did the same shit. And it's obvious that he's sober now and he's passing it on. It's a lead by example thing that's really powerful.
Yeah, and I think it's also a little bit of it's the not being, my story not being that different from anybody else's. And it's also it's humbling, it's relieving, it's all kinds of different things that were super helpful for me at the time. But it's a little bit of just kind of dispelling this belief that I had that I was just too fucked up to really be recovered, like to have any sort of recovery journey. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to cuss, sorry. But
obviously, it's required. That was a really heavy thing you just said. You felt like you might be too addicted to get help, or that you were just such a low opinion of yourself?
Yeah.
Help me there.
I mean, very, very low opinion of myself, which is, it's stuff that I still have to continue to work on, even 4 years later. But, the difference from then to now is immense. But I just thought like, oh, well, this is for alcoholics. I had a lot of other things going on. And then emotionally, I just felt so different because I was thinking like, these people seem cheerful.
Yeah. What's up with that? I got you.
These people seem normal to me.
Yeah.
And I was coming in just like, I'm like a freak or something. Like the stuff I'm going through just feels so different than what I see from other people here. But that was quickly dispelled, where I was like, actually, these people are really, the thing that's like such a blessing, that was such a blessing for me, was that people were just nice to me. They didn't even know me. And at first I was sort of suspicious of that.
Yep. Yeah.
I was like,
because we live in a world where everybody's selling something or wants something. And in recovery.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I got a phone call, and it was like, I think his name was Lenny. And he goes, my name's Lenny. I met you I was doing a panel at your sober living house. And I was calling to say hi and see how you're doing. I'm like, I'm okay. And he goes, all right, well, I'll see you around the meetings. Have a good one. Hang in there. He hung up and I went, what was that?
Yeah.
He didn't try to sell me a water filter or ask me on a date. It was just a one sober guy going, hey, I know you're a newcomer and just called to say hi, and we'll see you at meetings. I hope it's all good. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. It sounds like nothing, but it's a long way from nothing.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. The thing I was thinking about recently that's sort of related is I do feel blessed that people in AA, they've put up with my shit a lot more than other people.
Good point.
And there's a lot of acceptance there, because it's like we're all on this journey in the same way together. It's, we're not expecting anybody in here to be to be perfect. And I think there's a lot of forgiveness there that I find very, I'm not trying to like take advantage of people's, but there is like a faith that we're all working on the same thing.
And one thing I know is still waters run deep in here. Yeah. As you said, they seem normal and they seem nice. Many of them have jobs. Many of them have families. And then you find out that, this one did hard time.
Yeah.
And that one was a sex worker. And this one was so drunk all the time that they ended up, couldn't hold a job and their family wouldn't talk to them. You look at them now and you go, that's the guy I saw pulling up in a nice car with a nice significant other and nice clothes and easy to talk to. Really? This one was sleeping under a bush in a park in the winter for months at a time? Are you kidding me? And I don't mean to make it about money and that sort of thing. I'm just talking about having a life.
Yeah.
I was incapable of having a life. I lost relationships. I lost a career that meant everything to me. Except 1% less than staying high. That meant a little more to me, obviously, because of addiction.
Right.
And addiction is it's no joke. Our episodes are 30 minutes, and this one's flown by like that.
Yeah.
So I would like to dig into this if you have anything you'd like to share. And that is everybody who gets into recovery, everybody does it on a bad day. Shit is really going haywire. They feel horrible about themselves, or nudge from the judge, as we say.
Yeah.
Or an employer that loves you and says, but can't have it. Or a wife who loves you, or a husband or a significant other that says, I love you, but I'm done with your bullshit. You got to put the plug in the jug or we got no future. So we come in with a gun to our head. My feeling is the faster you can get to chasing the good stuff, there are things I want to do in my life. And I'm no longer in my 20s or 30s by a damn sight. There are still things I wake up in the morning dying to accomplish, to achieve, to experience. I think that's the secret, is to go from running away from legal and romantic consequences into I love life and I want more of this good stuff. Does that ring any bells with the way it worked for you?
I think so. I had just the gift of desperation was such a strong thing with me. Like it was just like I had tried everything else. I'd spent like months trying to get really good at meditation and yoga and trying to learn about Buddhism and things like that. While I was quote unquote dry. But I don't think I really had. I think I was just kind of at the end of the road
Fantastic.
For myself, which was really helpful. I actually think I was, I didn't really see any way out of the situation I was in at the time, like just what was going on with me, like emotionally. So that was pretty much my motivator, was like, I don't know what else to do.
You're a really smart guy. So addiction is progressive. We know that. And so you saw it in you and worsening. Is that fair to say?
Oh, yeah, completely. And I was just so hopeless. I was just in a situation where I just had no other choices. And I knew I had already learned about the program. I had heard about AA. I had heard about the 12 steps. Just made a lot of, the concept of the 12 steps actually made a lot of sense to me before I really understood too much about the spiritual aspects of it necessarily. It was more like I could see how, I've heard about these amends. I've heard about,
Yeah, it's out there. There's a Seinfeld episode and stuff. I know what you mean. You kind of hear little bits of this and that. I got you.
Yeah, and I just had so much guilt and just so much sort of regret going on that it actually spurred me to want to recover just purely on an emotional level. I think that's how I started.
That is a great way to end our conversation. Looking forward to seeing you further on up the road. Happy New Year to you.
Thanks,
and
you too.
Thanks for coming in here and telling your story.
Yeah,
really, it's we've got listeners all around the world, thousands of them, and you just never know what somebody in their car a long way away from here will get out of something you said when you opened your heart. So, thank you, brother.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having me.